Hi everyone, it's Kathleen. I'm here today to do a flip through of one of my Scrappy journals using my slit slot binding system. This journal is reserved for Shirley. It's up in my Etsy shop now. I have 3 others reserved, and there will be 4 others that will be available for sale, and they vary in color, the threads that I use, and some of the papers. So I'll show you the 18 pieces of ephemera that will be included with every journal. So let's open it up. I have used scrappy bits of cotton fabric for the closure, different shades of black and white, and these are all the fabrics that I have used in my slit slot binding system. So this journal, when you open it up, it has one of my signature Scrappy covers, craft paper bag, cheesecloth, various handmade papers, different fabrics, vintage trims, lots of hand stitching, vertical running stitch. We have the different different stitches throughout that I have used, and lots of machine stitching and hand stitching. Scrunched up scrappy bits. Let's have a look. Once these, I think I have 5 and 3 is 8. I have 8 journals, and I have used all of these little bits up. So these scrappy bits are unique for these 8 journals, as is my slit slot binding system. The inside of the cover is the cheesecloth and the craft paper sewn together and layered with different fabrics. I like to see the stitching, so that's what we'll see throughout. I've attached this fabric just to the back cover, and we do a wraparound closure for the journal. So let's see. There are about 58 pages, I believe I counted, in this journal. And so that's page 1 and page 2. That's how I count them. 3, 4. So this first page, I have alternated the slit slot fabric binding system. This one I have hand stitched and glued on craft paper, vintage little vintage hanky, craft envelope, and I have a printable for a library card tucked inside. I have done various colors of embroidery thread on the vintage torn lace bits, running stitch, different colors of embroidery floss that I'm using up. Love the back sides. So the fabric hinge extends onto the craft paper, which extends onto the envelope, which extends onto the fabric bits. So everything is just an increase, adding on scrappy bits to my journal pages. I have used, it's a dyed fabric and watercolor paper, and this is hand drawn and hand colored by me and painted. So this is original artwork. Turn the back, and I have inked with vintage photo, or sepia, I'm sorry. And not vintage photo, distress ink. I've used sepia archival ink, this rusty color. And I have alternated the slit slots fabric colors. They're always black and white, but one's a black background, then a white background, then a black, then a white. Tim Holtz paper bits I'm using up, very old fabric, torn lace bits, fabric, hand stitching embroidery floss, layers and layers, torn fabrics. The hinge system is machine stitched onto the fabric pieces as I extend them outward. Love these crafty crunched papers. Love how they look. And folding the edges, scrunching the edges, and hand stitching embroidery along the edges. See how we alternate the slit slot binding system. Tim Holtz paper. Love the black and white polka dots. Old cheesecloth, and I have made a little flip, and I have attached it with the embroidery floss. Or this one is, good gosh, forgot the name. Anyway, stitched on, see how the fabric, we have the fabric, slit slot hinge system, paper, sewn paper, folded, machine stitched on here to add an extension to increase the page lengths. Vintage book page, naturally dyed. I have inked it with sepia ink. Torn craft bags, some printables, lots of different coffee dyed fabrics, torn Battenberg, very old lace trims, and beautiful hand stitching, double layered, and a label. I like how the stitching is seen on the back. I've added different labels that I have. I have tons of labels here, and I'm trying to go through everything that I have, as well as different flower bits that I'm incorporating here, and the scrap bits. Okay. Different layers of fabrics, handmade papers. I love the progression of these. Lots of more of these kind of pages are going to be included in the journals that I make forward, because I just love the handmade papers, the netting, vintage lace trim, outlining it with embroidery stitches, different lace trims, stitching it on by hand, just layers and layers. And this is a coffee dyed runner. And you see how I've layered these fabrics outward? I'm doing that with all of the pages in these journals. Coffee dyed slit slot hinge system. Always craft. Love craft ivories off whites. This is an old book page that I have backed with cotton, inked, layered it, cut out different fabric squares and rectangles, and stitched it with variegated embroidery floss. This is black gesso, and I drew a pencil outline of a flower, and I have embroidered it. So this is all original, and just the feeling of the paper and the cloth and the craft, and just the different widths of fabric, thicknesses of fabric. This is a page ripped out of a Coil artist book, and 2 pages, and it could be a pocket. And I just like how something just as simple as this, I had just closed it by a machine stitched, double stitched onto my hinge, and I just made a lazy daisy stitch and tied the ends at the top just for decoration. Stamping, front and back. Just love this page. Using up my Tim Holtz papers, I would like to use the scrapbook papers that I have to get rid of the many papers that I have downstairs in my storage room. And love these different black and white fabrics. Black and white to me really pop, as does the different vintage lace trims. And there's different, I'm going to call this a bluish journal. I have 3 bluish journals and 5 reds and orange journals with red pops of red. So this is the blue accenting embroidery floss and the blue craft paper. So I've just added so many different layers of papers. Tim Holtz papers. This is actually tea bag, vintage old script book pages, and just layers and layers of old fabrics and trims. Battenberg. Love these scrunch pages and outline stitch done on the edge. Layering extending outward from the Tim Holtz papers, vintage hymnals, and stitching. Loopy turkey work to give this nice looped stitching. And I always secure a stitch, have a loop. Secure a stitch, have a loop. Otherwise, because right now I can pull, and it'll stay the same. If you just loop, one of these will get bigger, one will get smaller. So I like to anchor them so they're loose, but they're anchored and they stay the same. Turkey work. This is a multi-layered printable craft paper doily, old book page, another book page, and a printable. Stitched on, all the outlines of the papers are stitched on to give that multi-layered scrappy look. And here we have coffee dyed slit slot binding system. And then I go out with craft paper, lace trim, fabric bits, and then I do embroidery on some of the stitches. Some of the embroideries are just barely a shade off, so it's hard to tell, but they're all there. I like how it feels on the back. We have the black and white polka dot fabric hinge and the very old torn lace bits, and I've added more lace bits on the back, and then I machine stitched this one. This is another hand painted drawn item that I'm including in all my journals. This is their hydrangeas, or my interpretation of hydrangeas. And if you feel this is raised paint. And I paint with these fine line applicators. And they're really nice because they have a metal tip like this, and we have a long needle that goes inside to clean it, and then you squeeze. This is paint in here with airbrush medium, so we have very fluid paint to come out of this fine line applicator. I have black and white that I use regularly. Turn the back, and again the edges are just the corners, and some of the edges are inked, not everything. Beautiful piano roll paper. Many layers of Battenberg, different doilies, lace trims, and then stitching. And a little Tim Holtz paper. You'll see when I show you all of the ephemera I made, you can tuck any of the ephemera bits into these little tucks or pockets. Tim Holtz torn paper, and love the turkey work again. It's the anchor, a loose bit. When I say anchor, I mean like a pulled tight straight stitch. Very nice. Stephanie from Manchester, that's the lady's name. Stephanie, if you could please email me, I'd like to send you some it's a stitching that I've been working on, and you can continue working on it. She's from Manchester, and she looked forward to my stitching videos, which I'm not sure. I was doing several, but I will be doing more stitching videos as we progress. But please, Stephanie from Manchester, if you could contact me. You left me a comment on my last video, and I commented back, but I would like you to email me. I would like to send you something. Love this. Plain paper, plain craft paper that's scrunched, inked. The lace, vintage lace bit, leftover organza, and just stitched, meandering down the edge. And then I crossed some of the inner stitches. Love the variegated cotton floss that I'm using. And Tim Holtz page. We extend the page and sewn it on. Love this old torn bits. It's so thin, it tears like butter. Use hand stitching along the edge. Love layering one on top, and progressing outward from the slit slot binding system. Starting off with a very thin coffee dyed paper, added a printable, coffee dyed paper, printable, some heavier watercolor paper, layers and layers and layers of coffee dyed paper, some more of that turkey work. Love that turkey work, how it just gives it some beautiful embroidered work. Sorry. And stitching onto the craft paper, and then the vintage lace trim and another embroidered stitch down the side, holding it all together. Love the different pieces on the back. And this is a black gesso vintage page on coffee dyed fabric, and I've left it blank for you to create on. You can stitch through it like I did earlier, and that's that vintage shelf runner. Love these scrappy bits, just layered and stitched. Even this one has some scrappy paper bits on there. Some of it has been coffee dyed, some of it has not. We open it up and there's secret journaling spots or anything that you'd like. And I like how they hang over the side and drape over the other pages. This is a Tim Holtz paper that is glued onto craft, a piano roll paper. I have some fabric on the side that I glued to the edge of the paper on a diagonal, and then I just sewn different threads through it just to give it just that braid. It's very tactile. My journals, you can feel all the stitching, the papers, the trim. It's just wonderful. Favorite page. I love how it scrunches and it gets soft as you scrunch it, and you can add clear gesso, paint right on this. You can stitch on this. Love these old crocheted bits, and I have hand stitched on them. Just love how they feel. You can still write or paint or draw, do whatever you like on here. Just add things. The back half of the multi-layered page that's all sewn together. Coffee dyed music staffs. And I love how this rectangle piece of craft paper, vintage book page, dry embossed wrapping paper that has been inked with honey from Tim Holtz, and it's the color, and it can have a little pocket tuck, just a little tuck that can hold things. And this is the back of the journal. I love how the paper and the fabric just sounds. Love how it feels in your hand. And to close it, I just lay it down and wrap these around. And it's a long wrap, and I just tuck it underneath like this. And let's have a look at these pieces of ephemera that I've created. All of this is included in the listing. So we have first piece of ephemera, many different layers, scrappy bits, using up my scrappy bits. So they have different digital labels, flowers, original sheet music, printable paper, wrapping paper, and very old book page. Tag that is multi-layered, different shades of the book pages, craft paper, coffee dyed paper, multi-layers of scrappy bits that are sewn across the top for a tag topper, hand stitching with that same turquoise embroidery floss, machine stitched as well. That's number 2. Number 3 is another tag, multi-layered with printables, original book page, original music, sheet music, we say sheet music, piano music. It's from piano books. And maybe Tim Holtz papers, tiny tags with some sari silk, hand-stitched, machine-stitched. So hours and hours of stitching on these journals, hours and hours. Multi-layered of beautiful scrappy bits. Digital, craft bits, labels, cutouts of flowers, sheet music, vintage shillings, English pound conversion, sheet music, just tons of stuff. Layers and layers. Love this. It's maybe hard to see if I have all of that in the background. Let's see this. This is one of these beautiful little booklets that I recently made. This one has the tan-colored twine. When you open it up, it has the old book page, the labels, some homemade washi, Sampool photographs, they're digitals, multi-scrappy bits, fabric and lace, and you open it up and you have a doily bit and digital, just made with scraps, tiny little scrappy bits. Love these. These are Tim Holtz playing cards, but they have people on the other side. I love the back, the black and the white so much that, well, I say it's white, but it's more of a tan, black and sepia or tan color. It looks very vintage. I have glued and sewing machine stitched coffee dyed papers, craft bags, those dry embossed papers, those different fabric, black and white fabric bits, and this is a safety pin tag topper with different lace bits attached to the top. Love how these are looking. This is a fabric and lace sampler. Love the different crocheted bits and the different fabric bits. 1, 2. You see how it's black and white, the same print, but they're reversed backgrounds. One's black backgrounds, one's white background, black background, white, and then my beautiful dotted fabric. Printable. Absolutely adore these scrappy bits. Craft paper bag that has the vintage printables on it. Wallpaper. Printable. Lace. Very old lace. Sheet music. Printable tea cards. Stitching. Lace bits sticking out. Just love how that is. Love variegated pearl cotton. This is an original Norris and Bell farm implement. Maybe it's an invoice. It has the phone number. What's their phone number? 89. 89. Wow. This is a scrappy piece of ephemera. You could write on the back. Vintage original, printables, just different layers of stuff. Things and stuff, handmade paper. I inked some of the edges, made a little topper. Love how that turned out. Love how you sewed the different colors, straight stitch and the loose French knots. Another tag. This is sari silk. I like putting my 2 layers, book page, craft paper. I say book page. Oh, that one might be. It's from a hymnal. Music, craft paper, old book page, tea-dyed paper, layers and layers of printable, vintage, naturally caramelized book page, paintable wallpaper, and it's a new paper circle. It's a new paper circle with glue on the back. Reinforcer, dear God. And this is a journaling spot, or it can be sewn into your book or glued into your book to make a tuck. It could be a page. It could be anything, but it's included. Printables, packing tag, those same old lace bits. If you repeat your old lace bits, your same kinds of fabrics throughout your book, you have cohesiveness. And this is Tim Holtz photo, and I had these acetate film strips that I cut into individual ones, and I used Sagita's style of circling around and around and around her photos. Just love that. This is another piece that I had made, various layers of book page, piano music, put just a book page little square at the bottom for a page number, many layers, the tag, book page, some of your creative studio bits, and the Tim Holtz people and craft paper bag and the piano roll. Old bits of a tag. Love these. Layered bits of printable. Book page, craft paper, folded in on itself, the various layers. The 2 layers of the reinforced hole for the tag, double stitched, braille, little tag and a printable, tucked in some eyelet and stitched across the top. Love these little bits. I don't know why, but I absolutely love them. They are just a printable, a torn bit of printable, folded, and a Paris label and a stamp. And it can be a tab, an embellishment, a little, you can sew it onto the side. It can be a page addition. So lots of different things, just like this. We take our little bits of scraps, we layer the fabric, the lace, the tissue bags, the craft paper bags, sheet music, stamps, labels, lay them all on top, tear different shapes, and I stitch the top. Just love how these turn out. So they can be added onto a page, sewn on the edge, a lot of different things. And last but not least, a tiny little booklet. Tiny little booklet made with printables on a dictionary page. Trying to use up these dictionary page. That looks pretty nice. And book cloth sewn for the spine of the pamphlet. And I punched 2 holes through everything, all my papers, fed that sari through for a booklet. And let's have a look. Look at how pretty that is. I just did some lots and lots of hand stitching. That's why it's taken me probably 2-3 months to do all of these journals. So these next journals will be coming out every couple of days because I'm just doing the finishing sewing touches on everything. Otherwise, they're all made. So we have layers of book page, printables, graph dot paper, washi stickers, printables, lined paper, folded back and stitched, vintage ledger, and it's an old phone directory I had. I like the perforations ripping it out of the coil. I like that on the top of my books. Vintage ledger again, stickers, washi. This is vellum that I glued down and created it like a sticker. Vintage page, another torn papers, and I've made them as lazy daisy stitches around the edges. Just love how that looks. Back half of the tag and the back. I love just the layer of these little booklets. So these should be about, I think I counted 18 of these different ephemera pieces, about 18 of them, and the journal. So this one is for Shirley, and Judy is reserved, Pen, and Lisa. So then the next ones I come out with, they'll be for the ladies that are so each video will be out with the separate one showing the ladies how their journals are. Just love how they feel. And Stephanie from Manchester was asking if I was doing any stitching videos. After these journals are done, I will be getting back to a project involving stitchery, and I'll explain that later. Right now, 8 journals to be done, 2 of my Create playbooks, then 12 Edith Holden journals. Lots on the plate. These 8 coming up. Thank you everyone for watching. Bye for now.